Hello and welcome to the CCW Safe podcast. I'm Rob High in Oklahoma City, joined by Phillip Naman, and I believe it looks like you're back home today, Phil.
I am. I am heading to Prescott this afternoon.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Busy week this week so far. We had a lot of activity over the weekend as far as emergency incidents for CCW Safe. Fortunately, we didn't have to roll out on anything, but it's one of those that I always want our members to understand that part of our service is if you're involved in a self-defense incident that results in great bodily injury or death, we are sending guys to you. Experienced guys that are investigators. We're getting things together, and we're not necessarily working your investigation, but we're going to make sure that the investigation is being worked properly and
fairly.
Yes, and also we're going to kind of guide you through, because if you've never been through anything like that, you're just overwhelmed with how many things are coming at you and what all is fixing to happen.
So not to mention your own personal emotions.
Absolutely.
You fight for your life. You've got that adrenaline going boom, 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 boom. And then by the time the investigators get there, start asking questions, the adrenaline's coming out of your body and you don't know why, but you're shaking and, as it comes out of your body, out of your bloodstream, and your body reprocesses that. It is a very emotional time. Even if you're not upset, those hormones just knock you off your game.
Yeah, absolutely. But we were very fortunate. Matter of fact, Saturday evening, I believe it was, we had two that I want to say it seemed like they came in within an hour of each other, just bang, bang. But, it's important to know that when that bell is rung, when that call is made, it's answered immediately. There's a number of people that immediately get notified, and it covers our founders, it covers our legal teams, it covers our investigators, it covers our new president. Everybody gets pulled into this, and these notifications are made. But fortunately, these were less than major incidents, things that could be handled with attorney help and that kind of thing. So,
well, thank God for that. When you are a CCW Safe member, you get a couple cards, I think, with the phone number on it. It's a nice, heavy card, and I know what I need to call, right? But my wife, if there's something happens at the house, well, the place where the firearm is, the card's there. And, she knows that she calls 911, she asks for assistance, she asks for medical, and then she calls that number. So, it's important because, like we said, some people, like we just had Tony Blauer on, and some people train and feel like they can get through something pretty well emotionally because it's been through their head, right or wrongly, but been through their head 100 times. And others in your family may not. And so it's very important that they get that kind of coverage and help as immediately before they just tell their life story. I mean, I have a wonderful wife, okay? But if we go to the store, I feel like she feels that she needs to explain everything to the cashier. It's human nature, right? I mean, some people are like that, and not throwing her under the bus, but and so if you have a tendency to want to explain everything to everybody, and then you're in a critical incident, you really need to have somebody on your side, because all those words you thought were helping the situation in the beginning are going to come back in very cold, double-spaced print as evidence. And none of it, no matter what you think you're saying is correctly, is going to come out looking well for you.
Right. right. Yeah, and everything counts. Even that call to 911, as an investigator, that was always a part of my opening into my investigation is I want to hear that audio. I want to pull and I want to see what was going on there. And when we get there, I want to see if things are matching up with what the call said. Everything matters. So
you get that 911. You get that 911 call that says, "Hey, I found a guy in a car here. He's a gunshot wound." Then you hear the hand go over the mic. It goes, "Get the cannoli." Then you know.
Oh, you're terrible. You're terrible.
Yeah, we was just driving here.
Well, we think it's really important that you understand what you're getting in your service. So it's just one of those things that we always want to push out there, because there's nobody else in the industry that has the support staff and team to come and get you through it. There's nobody else that does.
I don't think we talk about that enough. As I mentioned to you earlier, I think that the differences are so stark between CCW Safe and the services you provide and others that are heavily marketed every time you turn on a radio, that you really should spend more time explaining those differences, I feel.
Well, Mike and Stan, when they put this together, they very purposely presented this to everybody as based on the police union model, right, or the FOP or the Benevolent Association, one of those police things, because there's years of development and training and success that have gone into doing those things. And so there's just no need to reinvent the wheel. As law enforcement officers, every one of us has responded to officer involved shootings. Some of us have been involved in those shootings. So we understand just how overwhelming and traumatic that can be, especially at the scene. Not just at the scene, the scene in the next couple of days coming, because this doesn't just affect me. This is something that's going to affect my children and my spouse and my parents and everybody, and
your future,
yes. And to have somebody to be able to kind of guide you and say, this is coming down next. This is what we're going to do. So it's hard to do. I've seen cops that can't walk away from it, but once you're involved in something like that, just shut down all your social media stuff. Don't watch the news. Don't read the paper, because it's not going to be reported accurately, and it's just going to be hurtful to you. So just some of the things that we put out there for our members.
I think that's very, like you said, turn off the social media, because there's a lot of people may comment on your page just to be hurtful. We've seen some of the things that have come down, where somebody just has a political opinion and the hate that gets bombed on them. I mean, it's people can be pretty bad when they're at home with their own keyboard and deciding to be, and if you're going through something like that already and you see one of those trolls just destroying your character, it's not gonna put you in the right frame of mind, so yeah, I would definitely stay off of that. Just shut it down. Don't let your family read it. Just turn off all your pages.
Well, and it's one of those that these keyboard warriors you're talking about are people that would never say these things to your face. They have that anonymity and they're hiding back there, and all of a sudden they become superheroes. And
it's not anonymity. Those are pajamas. They're garanimals. You have the top and the bottom match. There's giraffes go with giraffes. Don't put the alligators with the giraffes. Come on.
They don't match. They don't match.
And they yell from the basement, "Mom, I need another pudding pop and some pizza Hot Pockets."
I like Hot Pockets. Don't go there.
With some little Parmesan on.
We had that great visit with Tony. And it's like we were talking about with him. there's so many things that we train for and we practice for, and we've done all these things, but you threw it out there that, it's like Mike Tyson says, everybody got a plan till you get punched in the mouth, and your plan is gone. And that's what Tony was touching on, is learning how to develop those things within us that are innate. They were not trained. They're just, they're back there in your reptilian brain, and your autonomic responses, just flashing your hands up and, oh my gosh. And being able to understand that I got to take that to that initial shock, to react, to orient, and become involved, because it's not done. If you're still alive, you're still in this fight. That's something that, I've got a really good friend of mine, young lady that I actually trained when she was in the police academy, that'll be joining us next month, who was ambushed sitting in her car, and she was that AK or SKS or something like that, but she was shot multiple times. I was working that night. I know the big, huge call screen inside 911 that has GPS locators on all the police cars and things like that. I mean, it was just like a flood of people coming into that scene. Even to the point that was so terrible that, the ambulance is already there, and there were so many cop cars that came that the ambulance got blocked in. And these guys are trained professionals. They respond to calls like this, but when it becomes personal and it involves your own, the reaction is just so much different. But she can shed a lot of light on that for us when we bring her on. Katie is just, she's a beautiful young lady. Super, super tough. When you see her, you're like, no way, she's not a cop. She can't do that. She's a country girl. She is country tough. I've seen her training on the mat and putting a hurt on grown men. So I'm really excited to have her on. You'll enjoy her.
Look forward to that. Sorry about that story. I mean, being prepared, right? Keep your head on a swivel. If somebody's laying an ambush, you're going to be reacting. You're not really going to spot it unless they're just idiots. But if somebody is laying like that, she's in her car doing a report, she's parked somewhere remotely, and the guy sneaks up behind her, whatever, with a semi-automatic rifle, high caliber. She's lucky to be alive.
No, absolutely.
It's not. We had a case out here in Southern California. Two sheriffs were in a vehicle, parked, whatever, doing their reports, but it was a male and a female. And guy just walks up alongside the car and just starts firing. Action beats reaction. And when you're sitting down with your seatbelt on, with your laptop in front of you, because you have to do all this paperwork on every single call, and you're trying to get it all done, it happens. And unfortunately, there's horrid criminals in this world that take advantage of that.
Well, it's like you're talking, you're seated in your car. Have you ever worked on a drawstruck from a seated position in a vehicle? Because that's a way different kind of beast.
So I actually talked with one of the guys who was doing some designing work on holsters, because that exact thing, I was doing a ride along, and I noticed that, geez, if you have to get your pistol out, you've got a seat belt across it, because you have to wear your seatbelt all the time. Well, that's the buckle and the gun are right in the same spot. That's not a good idea. And my idea was, why not have a second pistol in the car mounted on the transom with the triple safety release, whatever it is. But if you had to draw a firearm, that comes out before you ever have to mess with your seatbelt or anything else. It would make sense to have a ready gun, because your long gun's trapped behind you. And not only that, it's not going to be able to come to bear quickly inside of the vehicle, especially if you have a partner. But anyway, that was my idea is you guys, while you're traveling, need to have a firearm accessible right here by the steering wheel to go.
Yeah, there's a lot. But again, it's knowing your mission, that you're talking about a first responder versus a civilian concealed carrier.
Right. Well, yeah,
Still, I know how to, I've worked probably thousands of repetitions of drawing from a seated position in a car. It was just part of our routine. When I was working gang enforcement, we were out very proactively chasing guys like that. Every time you turn a corner, you may turn a corner into the middle of a drive-by shooting. We did that several times. It's amazing.
You should stop turning corners. Just go straight.
Just go straight. So it was something that we worked on, and we had little things. We rode 2-man units, and we had a little thing that would go. And as soon as that noise, the indicator was to draw, the last guy to clear leather is the loser, and you owe me a drink the next time we stop and get a refreshment. It's just the way we worked it, and we did it all the time. In keeping with our direction and kind of going outside the box a little bit, lots of guys are out there putting bullets down range. They're working on that skill set. But again, thinking about the mission, what am I more likely to run across? I thought it would be a good idea, and you and I have spoken about this several times individually, to touch base on first aid.
Yep.
Again, depending on my mission, I always carry a pack in my truck. I always got something in my truck, because the odds of me rolling up on a car accident where somebody's got a severe laceration or something like that is far greater than me running into an active shooter situation and having to go patch people up. But in the event that we are in that worst case scenario, it's going to take a little while. It doesn't just resolve immediately. And if I take a round and I know that help is not coming quite yet, they've got to secure the scene, and
right.
Their primary focus is not going to be rendering aid to me. Their primary focus is to go after that threat and stop it. So understanding how to go about with emergency first aid. I'm not Phil Naman. I'm not going to pop out my knife and an ink pen and do an emergency trach and
always be ready for the trach, man.
But what do you carry? What do you have? And
so on my radio show, Firing Line radio show, we did an interview with a gentleman, and then we actually sponsored a couple of his seminars. His name was Townsend. So he created this little kit. He does all the training out here in not all of it, but he does a ton of training out here in Southern California. And he does a workshop class where he takes somebody and, he does a little drama at the beginning, and, oh my gosh, he has one of those red pills, ruins a shirt, whatever. But what do you do? And so from the beginning, you realize, I don't know what to do. I've been a civilian my whole life. I don't deal with that. I mean, the only trauma I've seen bullet wounds is when I'm hunting, and we're not applying first aid on the other end. So it was really interesting because it was a right off the bat, hey, okay, somebody's got a chest wound. What do you do? And so everybody says, well, number one, you put pressure on it. He goes, great, you just killed the guy. There's so many different things. If a shot happens here, if it's here, here's, and so it was really interesting. He went through, his kit has all the different things for chest wounds. It has everything for lacerations, for bullet wounds. If you want to plug the hole, he's got all that other fun stuff, the silly putty. But it was interesting because the number one thing was every gunshot takes a different response. It's not all put pressure on it. You put pressure on a lung wound, you're going to drown them, right?
Well, and we're not doctors, we're not physicians, we're not
We
trained
don't even
medical.
play one on TV.
And so and I've seen these things. I've been in the ER in a trauma unit as a first responder police officer and as an investigator. I've seen guys that were shot through one side into the other side, and they had a pneumothorax in one lung and a hemothorax in the other. And I mean, just in a bad way. And those kind of injuries require immediate medical attention. But if we were talking about, active shooter thing, we pop in the mall and all of a sudden there's somebody that's down, just the ability to get a chest seal on them. You're giving them the opportunity to live.
Mm-hmm. And so this is my main takeaway from his class. I didn't know how to handle a chest wound. Okay. And so a chest seal is what Rob just talked about, like that. If you have a perforation from your rib cage into your lungs, the air is going to go between your outside of your lung and the inside of your rib cage. It just leaks out as you exhale, it goes out. And the main problem with that is that air pressure will actually collapse your lung, not allowing it to fill with air again. So you're basically suffocating from having too much air in your rib cage. Now that doesn't sound right, but that's what's happening. And so the chest seal, if you find where you have to locate the bullet hole first off, but the chest seal, and it comes with its own little kit, is this gooey junk. If you put pressure on the chest seal, you're holding the air in, or if they're bleeding, you're holding the blood in, and that's not good for the lung cavity either. But the chest seal allows air to escape, but it can't come back in because it's a flap that closes against it's not Vaseline, but it's like a Vaseline-like substance. It's very gooey. And as you breathe in, it shuts it. So the air can come down through your good lung. And as you exhale, if there's anything in that chest cavity, it'll blow out. So the chest seal is a really unique thing, and it's used for obviously lung punctures. How else would you describe it, Rob?
Well, it's like you were talking, it's vented. So it allows air to go one way, but not the other way.
It's like a check valve almost.
Yes, absolutely. But there's so many other things that we can utilize and have on hand.
Before the other side. So the other thing we learned, because everybody says sit them up, because the blood. No, on this, they wanted the wound to be as low as possible. So if you're shot on the side, they want you on your side. So if there is blood, it's draining out the hole, not filling up that chest cavity. I mean, there's again, we don't deal with bullet wounds every day, thank God, unless you're a Chicago surgeon. But for those of us on the street, something that simple that you can get, take your little class, get it, put it in the back. I have one behind every seat of my car, one in the trunk, one behind the seat. I have one in each of my range bags. There's 2 of them at the house. You just get them and have them and know how to use them. And then the best part about them is when you look at them years later and they're covered in dust and you've never had to use one, that's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I knew so many guys that always thought they were prepared. Well, what do you carry? I always got a tourniquet. Well, that's great if I'm shot on an arm or a leg, but
or if your head wounds, tourniquets work pretty good, depending on who got shot. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But it's just having the right stuff for the right situation. So,
Right.
the chest seal is going to work on the chest. The a tourniquet is going to work on an appendage.
Even a makeshift, if you use, your belt and a stick.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, you sure can. When I went through and became
One more reason to wear a belt. All these people walking around having to hold their pants up with their left hand. Seriously, get a belt just in case you need a tourniquet. And then we don't have to see your underwear anymore either.
Thank you so much.
It's the little things in life.
The ability to keep a minimal kit, though, that can give you a response to multiple injuries. I was mentioning when I became a firearms instructor, and I've seen firearms injuries on the range. One of the guys had been an EMT, and even in like emergency situation, use the Gorilla Tape and a credit card. Boom, you got a chest seal. But
well, again, American Express, don't leave home without it.
But there are gauze kits that come with coagulants built into them. So
yeah.
So you utilize a quick clot, and I'm telling you, you're not going to make somebody happy if you're going to have to pack a wound,
right?
Because you have to pack it. You have to physically force it into.
You got to get the pressure where it needs to go. Yeah. Here's the one thing that doesn't belong in your first aid kit, because this is not rendering first aid. Standing there, videotaping it. Right. That's right. If something happens, nobody gets to action. They all grab their phone and it's, it's ridiculous. People need to get into action, see what you can do. In California, we have a Good Samaritan law. If you're in there trying to help somebody, you're not going to get sued for reasonable actions. Okay. I don't know if it'll cover my trach proclivity, but we hopefully haven't had to find that out yet. But it's important that you're in the right mindset that, hey, I want to help. It's not pull them back and because right now you're here watching that. Well, if one of your loved ones was in that position and you weren't there, what would you want somebody else to do? Go that extra mile. I just feel that that's so important. Most of the wounds that you see, especially in vehicle, it's going to be lacerations, right? You're going to have maybe some spinal cord injuries, and you really don't want to mess with that, other than to help stabilize them or get them out of danger. If the car's on fire, rolled over, something of that nature, in a precarious predicament on ice, over a hillside, you obviously want to help extricate the people. But blood, you're going to see a lot of blood. People's head hit a windshield, their nose gets hit with the airbag, there's lacerations from something flying around in the cab of the car. And so you're going to have to deal with a lot of blood. And you need to be, unfortunately, in this day and age, you need to be very safe around other people's blood. So in your kit, you get the big old gloves. You also see police officers, after they've finally got somebody in handcuffs, if they have to do anything with them, gloves come on, right? So I think that that's a very good part to have accessible in your kit at all time.
A chest seal, a tourniquet, quick clot, pressure bandages, all absolutely necessary items.
And Gorilla Tape, that's really a good one. They can come in handy in a lot of ways.
You can get into those things relatively cheap. You don't have to spend a great deal of money to put yourself into a position to maybe save a life. But there's other things that I include in mine. Obviously, I've been a first responder for a long time, so I've been put into positions that have forced me to kind of redesign and retool a little. You know, obviously, as a police officer, I'm carrying a couple of flashlights on me. I don't do that all the time as Rob the civilian. So part of the deal in my kit is a little head strap. It's got a little headlamp on it.
Good idea.
Because I'm not always going to do this in broad daylight. It's never going to happen the way you think it's going to happen.
Well, or so you've got your mag light tack light with you, right? The problem with that is you need two hands.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
unless you're gonna put that thing in your mouth, you know, so the headlamp is a great idea.
So
Good idea.
you've got that. You can't carry enough gloves. Especially if it's a fluid situation and you're having to do a lot of stuff that you catch tears in them, or you know you're just filthy and you need new gloves on. I mean, you're going to change gloves more than you can ever imagine. So Caleb Causey is a medic from Lone Star Medics in Texas. Great trainer, great medic. We've brought him out to our place and had him provide training. He did a range readiness training, first aid stuff. Really, really easy, hands-on stuff. And he takes a pair and kind of folds them and rolls them, kind of ranger rolls them to where he can take like a little snack baggie, you know, a little Ziploc. And he's just got like 10 pairs of gloves, just all lined up and ready to go. Man, that's a great idea. I never would have thought of that on my own. Another great trainer that I got to sit and listen to, Matthew Mclaughlin. He is one of Jacob Paulson's guys. He runs Mountain Man Medical. Jacob has concealedcarry.com. Just great source of information.
Absolutely.
Great training. His guys are all top flight. We were partnered with them last year. I believe we're doing it again this year for their big, huge training conference. They've got a Guardian Nation conference that is just loaded with just like top tier trainers. You've got guys that are high level competition shooters. You've got guys that are entry level skill building guys for new people. You've got, we had Andrew Branca come out and do legal update things on self-defense. But Matthew Mclaughlin was out there with his Mountain Man Medical group. And one of the little things I got from him, and it's something I keep on my keychain, is that little bitty pouch right there is a deal for giving mouth to mouth. If I have to do rescue breaths for somebody, suddenly I'm good to go. I'm not going to sit here and worry about a cross contamination or somebody throwing up in my mouth or something like that, because those things happen.
I'll do the chest compression. You do the mouth to mouth.
But yeah, if you're having to do some of these things, and there's people in the world that I probably wouldn't just dive headlong into helping. But I don't know that I could ever stand by and watch a child that all of a sudden needs that kind of first aid. Yeah. So, what was the other things that I had? I carry additional tourniquets. I carry hard splints and soft splints, but I'm a little over the top with some of my stuff like that. So
it also depends on. So I guess it depends on where you're operating out of. So if you're rural Oklahoma, and you could be 20, 30 minutes, an hour away from from help, then that's going to be important. If you're in a normal activity in an urban area, you're only a few minutes away. So you may not need the splint activity in that area. Now, I said under normal activity. Of course, if we have a major earthquake or something like that, you could be days away from any kind of normal service. So it's probably good to have both ways, I guess is what I'm coming to here, because you just don't know.
And I've responded to some of the biggest tornadoes ever to come through the state. So
Yeah,
you
guys should move.
May 3rd, 1999 was, this thing was more than half a mile wide, and it just went forever.
I saw Nancy Pelosi on a broomstick going by in that tornado.
She was flying to California though, so it was
unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah, there's so many things, and there's so much training available out there for you. So really it's just kind of putting out there some food for thought, something that you can put into your, I got things that I just keep stuffed into my range bag that they don't ever come out. That's right. They're always available when I'm at the range.
Yeah, that kit goes in the side pocket of each range bag. So there's one just set up. I mean, they're not that expensive. Obviously, there's other kits. You can get whatever you want. But what I've got, my number one takeaway from this is that Ranger roll on the gloves, because I only have a couple pairs here, and that makes way more sense. A lot easier to put back on too, especially when you're dealing with stuff. And the Gorilla Tape. Now, a roll of Gorilla Tape is, half the size of a gorilla. But if you have something else in your kit that you might need, that's like you could even just think about your splint stuff. You can wrap it around that. When we were hunting in Alaska, you need to have stuff like Gorilla Tape in case you get a tent tear or your jacket tears or something. It's great stuff just to keep the water out. So we'd wrap it around the walking sticks. So you've got, 7 or 8 feet of Gorilla Tape, but it doesn't take up any space in your pack. So you could store it in this around something like that too. You don't need the Mondo. Hopefully you don't need the Mondo roll of Gorilla Tape.
Well, and
you could, you could put it around your trach tube, because you always got to, have that handy, Rob.
I'm leaving that one to you. I'll do the rescue breath.
I'm practicing my overhand trach.
But again, we have the ability to take in those trainings that allow us to be our own first responder. Honestly, if I prepare and train to self-rescue, I'm already in a better position. I'm not near as likely to panic and become overwhelmed, because emergency situations they're just overwhelming if you've not trained for them. It's like if you watch, the military indoctrinates their young soldiers in a certain way. Police and fire have their own ways. We manufactured stress. It was one of those that on day one, I was the training coordinator for the police academy for about half of the entire Oklahoma City Police Department. And to come in and purposely build a stress thing for you, that all of a sudden I sit you down and go, okay, Phil, here's this stuff right here. This is how you put a uniform shirt together, put your shirt together. And you can't get a button because your hands are shaking so badly. That's a day one stress. It's a nothing thing, but it's a cumulative thing that continues and builds for 28 weeks. And by the time they come on the back end of that and they roll out on something that's stressful, they're kind of inoculated to it. They have an understanding on how to deal with it. So even learning how to properly breathe and control your heartbeat and things like that. These are, if you learn how to do rescue breaths, we called it combat breathing. I can, if I'm injured, I can keep myself from going into shock. I can maybe coach you, Phil, follow me, do this as we're breathing, do these things. And it may be just the thing we need to prolong that response till we can actually get you to that qualified trained medical help. So these are the things that I like to push out there. Again, you've got the two that I'm really, really proud to have an affiliation with is Caleb Kazi at Lone Star Medics down in Texas, and Matthew Mclaughlin with Mountain Man Medical. You guys can go to concealcarry.com and get into his stuff like that. Caleb actually has stuff that he does all over the country. Matthew has got stuff online at concealcarry.com that you can go kind of piece by piece, build you a kit, or he's got kits as big and extensive as you want that you can purchase directly from them. And they're actually really reasonably priced. So I would really encourage our members to kind of prepare to be your own first responder, be that guy.
Oh, take a look at some of the things that have happened, the Las Vegas shooting, right? How many people were, lots of people died, but how many people were injured? Hundreds, right? That's going to overwhelm any kind of a situation. So yeah, you need to be prepared to be your own first responder every time, every place. And whenever something happens, the fact is you are the first responder. The victim is the first responder. The police or paramedics or fire department, well, they're going to get there when they can. They might be the first government responder, but you being there are the first responder, and you need to do what you can. So when you go home that night, you're not plagued with the, what if I could have only done this? What if I could have only done that? If a loved one's injured, that's terrible. What else is terrible is what plays in your mind after that is, what could I have done? Why didn't I do this? And that's only going to be in your head forever. So those are the things that hurt people long term. And this is your chance to train and get the information ahead of time. Hopefully, like I said, your first aid kit dies of dust exposure and you never have to use it. But if you do, you're ready. And I think that just goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree. What have you got coming up in the week ahead, sir?
Well, this week, actually, in Southern California, we have a group of guys that are up there cleaning up a forest road where people are allowed to shoot. But sometimes you get these not so considerate people that bring like televisions out there in the middle of the forest, and just ridiculous. So these guys are cleaning up this entire shooting area. That's our local hunting area is called D14. And so they're on Facebook. They're organizing that. We've helped promote that for them this weekend. Shooting, I'm going to try and we're also doing some long range shooting on Sunday this week out to a mile out here in the high desert, or actually low desert. So that's really exciting for me because finally get to get back out there after a couple of months hiatus. And just San Diego, out of the Paula range, they're having some PRS matches starting in March. No, not March. It's starting in April. So anyway, we'll get back into that when they open those back up again. So gonna have some fun. Enjoy it.
Good. I got an invite to a fundraiser. It's something that has been going on for years and years and years. That is a fundraiser for the Police Athletic League, and they do a big fight night. And every year they have a big name fighter that comes in that is kind of like the special guest for the whole event. but there's several fights, there's dinner. But it's a little black tie affair. It's really, really nice. And
Are you getting back in the ring?
I am not getting back in the ring, dude. I've been punched more than anybody should ever be punched. So. But
That's why you're in judo. Keep your friends closer, your enemies closer, right?
Yeah. The headliner for this, the big special guest is Sugar Ray Leonard. And
wow. One of my favorites.
Absolutely my all-time favorite fighter growing up. I mean, I'm so excited just to, I am a fanboy. So
absolutely. I would be there giggling too.
I don't get silly over celebrity stuff too often, but this one is a big deal to me. So I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be such a great time.
That sounds amazing. He is. I remember the '76 Olympics. Just
yes.
Wow. He was awesome.
So fast. And I was just thinking about it last night about all the great fights I got to see him in.
No mas, Roberto. I'll do Roberto Duran. Ready? No mas. I ate a burrito. Yeah. No mas.
But oh goodness, Hearns and Hagler and oh my gosh, just it was in my lifetime. That was like the golden era.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So it was a lot of. It's something I'm really looking forward to, and hopefully we get to see a couple of good fights out of the deal too. So, and then Gary and I are getting ready to go and take care of our friends for their annual business meeting, but it's NYPD's Retired Sergeants Association. They're a great group of guys that we have a huge number of members from their organization. So we always try to go out and take care of them as well. So
that's an interesting thing with New York too, because there really isn't any concealed carry in New York for the private citizens, but the officers have to carry their own. And that's really a blessing for them that you guys are able to provide that service in New York.
That's the only ones we can cover there. But really good guys, really good people. It's like getting to sit in on the law enforcement side of The Sopranos. So I love going and visiting with these guys. They're super good people.
Some's a little of both.
Yeah. Use guys,
forget about it.
So, well, we thank you guys for tuning in and joining us again. As always, you have questions, comments, suggestions, you can reach me directly at rob@ccwsafe.com. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you later.
God bless. See you soon, Rob.
Stay safe.